Good morning or good afternoon, Tigers. Today we'll be watching a video on homework X. Please make sure that you write your last name, comma, first name, today's date, and circle your class color. Number 1 on each day is going to ask you to calculate the tax of 2 items and then the total of those 2 items. I think it asks you that every single day. So let's look. Number 1, Monday. Lily buys a coffee and a muffin for $10 plus 7% tax. Andrea buys a tea and a brownie for $6.50 plus 7% tax. How much is their total together, including the tax? So since they both have the same exact tax, you can calculate 7% of 10 plus 6.5. So you can just have $10 plus $6.50. You could probably do that in your head, and that's $16.50. Because you can add those two together because they both have 7% tax. Now, some of you guys might be tempted or want to make this mistake and say, oh, one of them has 7% tax, the other one has 7% tax, so it's 14% tax. That is not the case. You do not pay a higher tax when you go to a store. The tax stays consistent no matter how many items you buy. So it's like if a customer behind you and the customer in front of you, like, it just does not make sense to say that the tax is doubled now. No, the tax is still 7%. So the total before tax is $16.50, and I want to calculate what 7% tax is. So first of all, I have to find the decimal of 7%. So I just get a decimal right here next to the symbol, move it 2 places to the left, and then put a 0 here, so it's 0.07. So now I have $16.50 times 0.07, and that's going to tell me the amount of tax. So I'm going to allow you to use a calculator on this, because when you calculate tax on the state test or even on the district test, if you're given percentages, you're given a calculator. Okay, so this comes out to, after you do the work, it comes out to $1.15. And remember, $1.15, that's pretty reasonable for tax. So that's not your answer. Your answer is how much is their total including the tax. So now the last step there is to add $16.50 plus $1.15, because that is the tax. Add that together, and you should have $17.65. So Lily and Andrea's total is $17.65. There's like nowhere to write a sentence, so we'll just box that. Now, the reason I call this homework X is because this percent tax interest is technically a whole month's worth of work in 7th grade. So we were supposed to do percents the whole month of January. But when we came back in January, I taught you expressions and equations. We were supposed to start expressions and equations in December, but we didn't. We were really behind. So when we came back from break, I taught you expressions and equations. And I'm just going to teach you percents and interest in 1 week with homework X. Why am I doing that? Because it's easy. And I've already taught you how to calculate and how to convert a percentage into a decimal and so on and so forth. So if you paid attention in Quizette 723, you guys had a fraction or a ratio, convert it to a fraction, convert it into a decimal, convert it to a percent. That's the basics of what you need to know in 7th grade. All right? Number 2 is super easy. Just pay attention. You have an equation when it comes to interest, and it's called I equals PERT. So go ahead and write I equals PERT, P-R-T. And what that means, the I represents interest, the P represents the principal amount, the R represents the rate or the percentage, and the T represents time in years. All right, so let's read the scenario. Jose has $20 in a savings account. So right there, I can tell you that that's going to be the principal amount. So go ahead and circle 20 and write P, because that's going to be the principal amount that you put right here. So that's P right here. So actually, I'm just going to box it. Let's see. That earns 10% annually. 10% is going to be your rate. How much interest will he earn in 8 months? So this is where it gets a little tricky, because the time has to be in terms of years. So just ask yourself, how many months are in 1 year? 12. So then you just do 8 over 12. That's how you're going to plug it in. Okay? And then in the little font, it says, use the formula I equals PERT, where I is the interest earned, P is the principal, the starting amount, R is the interest rate expressed as a decimal, and T is time in years. So let's plug in. We don't know what the interest is because that's what we're trying to solve for. Our principal is $20. Just put in parentheses because we're going to multiply all of them. Our rate is 10%, but you cannot put 10% in there. You have to change it into a decimal. So let's change it into a decimal. So that's 0.10 or just 0.1, but I'll put 0.10. And then times time. And our time is 8 months out of 12 months. Now, if it were to give you 1 year, you could just put 1 right there. So you get a calculator and you literally multiply 20 times 0.10 times 8 divided by 12. And actually, let's work backwards on the calculator. Do 8 divided by 12 times 0.10 times 20. I'm going to put it into my calculator. I'm going to do 8 divided by 12, which is 0.66666 forever. So then you multiply that by 0.10, and you multiply that by 20, and you get 1.33, and it repeats forever. So the interest on this account is $1.33. That's it. I'll explain this more after the video. Number 3, estimate the amount of the tip by rounding the bill to the nearest dollar before calculating. What is 20% on a bill of 98.12, and what is the total with the tip? So 2 questions here. What is 20% tip on the bill, and then what is the total with the tip? So 2 questions that you need to answer, so 2 answers. First of all, let's estimate. 98.12, that's probably closer to $98. Let's find out what 20% is. Remember, you have to turn 20% into a decimal. It's 0.20. Or you can just do 0.2. But let's just do 0.20. 8 times 0 is 0. 9 times 0 is 0. 8 times 2 is 16. 9 times 2 is 18 plus 1, 19. Add it together. You went 2 decimal places. So 20% tip on a bill that's 1912 is on a bill that's 9812 is 1960. So this is just the tax. Now let's see what the total is plus the tax. This is called the subtotal. And just add that together. And your total with the tax is $117.72. And that's it.